Stop the insanity. Get focused on what really matters in life. Your faith, your family, your finances, and your future. Now sit back and change the trajectory of your life. This is Money for Life, brought to you by the 100-Year Savings Solution. Are you concerned about the markets? Stop taking unnecessary risks with your money while also getting great benefits. Visit us at 100yearsavings.com. Now, let's welcome your Money for Life hosts, Teresa Kuhn and Rick Sapio.
Hello, everybody. This is Teresa Kuhn with my partner, Rick Sapio, and this is Money for Life. Today, we're going to talk about masterminds. And masterminds became popular, maybe 20, 30 years ago when there was a resurgence of Napoleon Hill's classic book, Think and Grow Rich. And Rick has been involved in many masterminds over the year. I, in fact, have been involved with many masterminds as well. But Rick has led masterminds, accountability groups, and I think you're in for a real treat learning all about masterminds from Rick's perspective. So Andrew Carnegie, who was the first billionaire in the United States, or maybe even in the world, he said that regular use of mastermind meetings was one of the most powerful things that I practiced diligently in my business career. And Napoleon Hill documented a lot of Andrew Carnegie's practices. Rick, with Business Finishing School, you've got a whole module dedicated to accountability groups and mastermind groups, and you've got a fascinating story of how you learned about masterminding and accountability groups with a group that had been meeting for a very long time. And out of that group, it was 10 gentlemen, there were like 7 of them who were wildly successful. So why don't you begin with telling that story?
I'm excited to talk about accountability groups and masterminding and all that because it's such an important part of my life. For 30 years now, I have been in groups like this. The ones I like best, I call them weekly accountability groups, in which a group of people get together once a week on either Zoom or in person. And the group that you're referring to is, I belong to the Gathering of Titans program. It's a group of people get together at the campus of MIT at the Endicott House. We've been doing that for 18 years. And one of the speakers that was addressing us many years ago casually mentioned his weekly accountability group. And this guy was about 70 at the time. And he said, yeah, we meet in the basement of our church. We have the same chairs and the same 6:30 a.m. starting time with no food, no coffee, no interruptions. And we've been doing it every Wednesday for 30 years. Actually, at the time, if he was 70, he probably had been doing it for 40 years, now that I think about it. But just imagine what it would be like if a group of people, almost like a marriage of 8 people, were coming together every Wednesday at 6:30 a.m. with no interruptions for 90 minutes to talk about your success and each other's success. That's what mastermind groups are all about. And that inspired me to create weekly accountability groups. Prior to that, I was doing it monthly. I was doing it in organizations like YPO, which stands for Young Presidents Organization, or EO, which stands for Entrepreneurs Organization, or Gathering of Titans, as I mentioned, or inside my company. But from meeting John, I shifted to doing it weekly, and that was about 15 years ago. Now, here's an interesting thing, Teresa. People often say to me, I don't have time to do that. And I say, if you don't have time to meet with a group of people that are committed to your success once a week, then what are you doing with your life? Because for me, it's the most fruitful time of my week oftentimes. And there have been periods of my life where I was meeting for 4 hours every week for years in groups like this. So one thing that I found for groups to be successful, the members just need 2 characteristics. One is a passionate commitment to growth. They want to be better. They want to do more. They want to be more. They want to achieve more. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the ability to commit to a weekly rhythm. You know how many people just choose to not be able to do that? Like, how can I make a commitment every week? What if something happens? And we've often said on this podcast that doing something 100% of the time is easier than doing it 90% of the time. And the reason that's so is if I tell my wife I'm going to have our 7:30 Monday date night 52 times this year, every single Monday night, that's a lot easier than, well, you think we should do it next week? Well, we can't get a babysitter. Well. And then what happens is you make up excuses, and 10% of the time that you're missing becomes 20, 30, 40, 100%. So if you're the type of person that can't commit to a weekly rhythm, I think that excuses are as powerful as anything on the negative. And I would look into why you're that type of person.
This is a message from our sponsor, the 100-Year Savings Solution. Rick and I do these podcasts because we want to impact people's lives in 4 areas: their faith, their family, their finances, and their future. And with the 100-Year Savings Solution, it gives you more options to live a better life in those 4 areas. It is a specially designed whole life insurance policy that gives you more for your money than you'll ever get from a bank, a CD, or the traditional savings solution. Go to 100yearsavings.com to learn more. Rick, so I know how you operate, and I know that typically you become the leader of any group that you're with. And your mastermind groups, I know that you've said the success of each individual in an accountability group will default to the most successful person in the group. Can you expand a bit on what you mean by that?
Of course, Teresa, thank you for asking me that question. These are biblical principles. Birds of a feather flock together. I know that if my friend is hanging out with drug addicts, he's probably not going to do as well as if he was hanging out with billionaires. It's such an obvious thing. Show me who you spend the most time with, and I'll show you how you are. These are sayings that we've heard our whole lives. You're going to turn out like the people you spend the most company with. So we've heard all these things. So the reason why the success of a group tends to migrate toward the most successful person is because of that principle, the principle of attraction. You're going to attract in your life what the people you hang out with attract into their life. So if the people you hang out with attract alcohol and drugs, that's what you're going to attract. If they attract billions of dollars, that's what you're going to attract. If they attract love and happiness and gratitude for life, great. I find it interesting that whenever I want to elevate my game in business, I surround myself with people in that game. And we all have that opportunity to do it in any realm of life. If you want to become more spiritual, hang out with people that emulate and are that level of spirituality that you want to become. None of this is brain surgery. But then you think about, why the heck don't more people do that? If you look at how your time is being spent, if you're spending your time on electronics and Netflix and Facebook and social media and fake news and whatever else you spend your time with, that's how your life's going to turn out. And so none of this is magic, Teresa.
You're absolutely right. None of it is magic. And it's actually very, very simple. What's not so simple is the dedication of making the commitment and sticking to it. Because these mastermind groups can last for years and years and years. Now, that is what I think actually is a negative of these mastermind groups. When do you know that the time has passed for you to move on from a mastermind group? Because I know I found myself stuck in some mastermind groups that, because of loyalty and because of the rhythm and because I really cared for the people that I was connected to in that mastermind group, I stayed far longer than I should have. Speak to that.
That's a really great question. I think that before you make a commitment of, an hour a week forever, be really careful who you're getting in bed with. And you've heard the term strange bedfellows make for strange company. I don't know what the phrase is, but oftentimes, as you pointed out, people get into the wrong group because they didn't do their diligence, or they just, for whatever reason, got in the wrong group. If it's the wrong group, loyalty also breeds certain negative aspects. And I have had friends for many, many years too long. So you have to be careful. Loyalty is one of those things that you really have to consider. And as you say, and I say on these podcasts often, when is the best time to make a decision? It's usually now, but people often wait a long time. And we define as eternity the time that elapses between when you know you should make a decision and when you actually make it. And I've seen in my own family, 2 people get together, they're in love, they get engaged, they know it's not going to work, but they don't break it off. And then a week becomes a month, becomes years, and then they get married, and then years become decades. So loyalty is one of those things that you're going to have to sort out yourself. And I would bring it up to the people closest to you and say, listen, I feel like I may be over loyal to this situation or this job or this person or this group. And that is a whole nother can of worms. So thank you for bringing that up.
It's values-based decision-making, right? It's one of the topics that we talk about all the time. And it is values-based decision-making in terms of choosing who you want in your accountability group And if you stay in that accountability group, I know one of the groups that I was in, there was just a disconnect in values. And I believe that I wasn't contributing enough or getting enough out of the group because there was a disconnect with values and I could not overcome it. I know I stayed way too long. And after I got out, there was an immense feeling of freedom and like a big weight had been lifted from me. Because when you do make the commitment, it goes on your calendar and you're on it every single week for a specific period of time. And then there's also the relationship aspect of it, contributing to if someone reaches out to you or you need to reach out to them. It's not just that hour in a week. There's a lot more that is entailed committing to a mastermind group. There's also the preparation for the mastermind group. In business finishing school, you've been teaching this in a module for, 10 years at least. And you have a whole implementation guide for the mastermind groups. Again, it's not just the hour of the week. There is prep time before. There's the connections, the relationships. It does take a lot of space, not only in terms of the calendar, but also psychic from a brain power perspective.
Yeah, so you're right. Here's the thing though, when you make a commitment to an hour and a half a week, whether it's on Zoom or in person, oftentimes the commitment becomes invisible. I don't have to think about my commitment to my weekly accountability group. I don't have to think about my commitment to my weekly date night with my wife. Yes, there's preparation, and yes, you're carrying energetically and spiritually these other people. But the more you commit to a rhythm like this, the more you get out of it. And the type of people that are constantly evaluating, those people will drive themselves nuts and everybody else around them nuts. Thinking about years ago, we had a member of the group, very, very successful guy. And every week he would say, I don't know if I'm getting anything out of this group. And I would say, of course you're not, because you're not contributing anything. You'll get out of a group or a relationship or a company or a life exactly in proportion to what you put into it. What energetic, passionate contributions you make, they will yield a commensurate return to you. And so, yes, you can't have those people that are evaluating minute by minute, week by week. For me, I make a long-term commitment first, and then I contribute as much as I can. And I evaluate over time. I look at, what happened over the last 5 years, but I have never been in any type of accountability group for less than 5 years. Now, I do that because if I commit to 5 years, I'm going to have a far greater chance of doing the right due diligence before I enter. However, if you're like, let me just try it for a week or 2 weeks, that's no commitment on the front end at all and no commitment on the back end at all. I'd much rather commit to due diligence first, long-term commitment, at least 5 years, and then dive in and keep giving and giving and giving, and then look back over 5 years and say to myself, wow, here's what I got out of it, or here's what I didn't get out. And then I could evaluate whether or not I want to quit.
How many accountability groups have you been involved with over the years?
So me personally in a group, I would say 9 or 10. And then me launching groups or leading other groups or spawning groups, I would say 400 or 500 different groups, because I'm just really passionate about this topic. I'm really passionate about these groups and what they can give to people and what people get out of it, mainly because we have filled our lives with so much crap that we never stop, ground, center, decide what we want out of our lives, find a group of people that are friends. I'm so passionate about it also because, I saw a poll a long time ago that in 1950, the average person reported 7 best friends or close friends. And by 2010, the average person had reported none or 1 best friends or close friends. And now 2020 and beyond, the average person, how many close friends do we have? It's interesting to think about it, but when you consider all your Facebook friends and all your social media friends and all your LinkedIn friends, all these people in your community, have you ever asked yourself this question? How many of those people would be around my deathbed? And the answer is 0. Your deathbed is going to be surrounded by people that you committed to in person, loyally over a long period of time. And we've forgotten that in society. So that's what mastermind and accountability groups get you. They get you committed, close friendships over a long period of time.
You're absolutely right, Rick. And there's an epidemic of loneliness in this world. There's an epidemic of people feeling very alone and very disconnected. And that is absolutely one of the benefits to being an accountability group is you are surrounding yourself with a group of people that are committed to your success. you are committed to their success. You share values, you share objectives, and when it works amazing. It works very, very well. I do want to ask you, so when you burned down the house, I know that you separated from some of your accountability groups. What was the fallout from you doing that?
Yeah, so a few years ago, I decided that I wanted to completely reset my life. I realized that there was a lot of long-term relationships and organizations that I had been part of that were just way too long in the tooth. And Teresa's using the metaphor burning down the house to describe how I characterized it. Like I literally wanted to burn stuff down so that it couldn't resurface again. And so I threw out journals. I terminated long-term relationships. I got out of businesses and boards that were not serving anymore and that I was not serving. It's a two-way street. And I got out of 2 long-term accountability groups that I had committed my life to and committed so passionately to, but it just wasn't serving. So I am very open to the notion of not committing to something like this, for your life. I do believe, however, in marriage being a life. And I made a lifetime commitment to my wife, and that's my intention and that's my commitment. And I think that helps us have a stronger marriage. But accountability groups are not marriages. They can be perceived as a marriage, almost like how they interact, as I mentioned, with that other long-term group that I think has been meeting now as this recording is being made for over 50 years. And that is very rare, and hats off to them. But to finish the thought, burning down the house is something that everyone should consider at certain key points in their life. What would it be like if I reset a lot of key relationships and key commitments in my life? And that is a whole nother podcast. And we've already completed that one.
This was another great conversation, Rick, and one that I don't know anybody else in the world who has spawned on as many mastermind accountability groups as you have, not including Napoleon Hill with his book. I think he set the recipe for accountability groups, mastermind groups, and they became popular thanks to his sharing Andrew Carnegie's recipe for success. So thank you so much for showing up like you do. Thank you for sharing. I mean, the wealth of information that you provide, and it's life experience. It's not just academic. This was actually your experience. You've been working with these mastermind groups for 30 years personally and spawning on over 400 of them. It's truly remarkable.
Well, thank you, Teresa. It's always great to work with you. It's always great to share information with the world that can help people be better in the 4 areas: faith, family, finance, and future. Thank you for listening and have an awesome day.
You have just experienced the Money for Life podcast, brought to you by the 100-Year Savings Solution. Implement these strategies today and create a life by design. For more information, visit 100yearsavings.com. Have a blessed day.